Hi, everyone. Thought I'd just do a quick short for you all today. So many people are asking about the 51st state. I don't necessarily want to address Trump's 51st state. I think there's lots of conversations where people are seeing this as a direct threat to Canada, as opposed to maybe pointing out what it actually is and the acknowledgement that Canada's sovereignty without the United States is somewhat at risk. And there's some geopolitical reasons I think that people need to take a step back. And if they would take a little less time to boo national anthems and actually look at what Trump is actually trying to draw attention to, I think the issue here is really security. And, I know fentanyl has been trafficking. Those are things that need to be addressed. And I've spoken out about that quite a bit. Secure the damn border. But here's the key word: secure. And the fentanyl flowing across, the terrorists flowing across. Trump is pointing out the fact that Canada can't control something as simple as that, let alone something as big as maybe China or Russia threatening our Arctic, for example. So I think what people need to talk about a little bit more is the entire geopolitical environment in which we find today. People think that we're living in these peaceful times, there's no real threat to our populations, but that's not necessarily the case. And the threat is not coming directly through war as far as, guns and front lines the way it used to be done. There's, economic and security breaches that are coming with AI and threats there. Drones are replacing, very high powered and expensive aircraft, things that, so warfare is changing. And I think people are just failing to realize that the world has changed. Canada doesn't live in the same environment. The US, now with its new positioning with respect to taking on some of the global elitists, are going to find itself at odds with some of those countries that are probably going to buckle down, unfortunately, just like Canada. Carney is all about maintaining and going in the opposite direction of the United States. And you have to look at why he's choosing to do that, because he's a globalist, he's an elitist. They have an agenda. It's one world power. And the United States has said, we're not going along with that. We are a sovereign nation, and we are going to oppose that. We are going to secure our borders, secure the borders, the lands around us. So when you're talking about looking at this 51st state, people think it's funny. It's not funny. He is in a somewhat of a roundabout way pointing out the lack of Canada's ability to secure its own shores. And largely that is Arctic. And if we can't secure our borders, our landmass, and the territories which we own, unfortunately, that is going to put the security of the United States at risk. So, Panama, same thing. He's made this very clear. It's not about the fact that he wants to control everything and he's taking it over. It's about he does not, it's more about who he doesn't want controlling it. So China has moved into the Panama Canal and they have significant control and influence in that region. He is saying that that needs to change. Greenland, same thing. It's a very strategic resource. The US has always had bases in Greenland, and he's looking at what he needs to do to secure the United States, both from an economic perspective, a geopolitical perspective, as well as potentially a wartime perspective. So if you think about the Monroe Doctrine, that was drafted during the Cold War, the last thing that Donald Trump wants is Canada as a communist threat. And people go, oh, don't be ridiculous. Well, look at how the Chinese have infiltrated our government. I mean, they won't even release the names of all the MPs who have been influenced by Chinese money and lobby groups. And, why not? Like, I'm sorry, but release the names. So there's real threats that preside in this country, and real threats that need to be addressed. And I think that's realistically what you need to take a step back and look at. Stop booing the freaking national anthem, for heaven's sakes. Like, grow the F up. The reality is there's real threats. And you know what? Take a step back. Let's take a look at what the threat actually is and how Greenland, Panama, Canada, how all of this is kind of piece it together. Right. I love this because so many people don't actually take a look at it from a big picture and they go, oh, he's being a bully. No, he's not being a bully. What he is doing is bringing attention to a very serious problem. And if you think that Russia and China, as far as the Arctic in particular go, it's not just about resources, it's about the flow of consumer goods, it's about proximity to weapons, and, that is what Donald Trump is trying to look at. So there's lots of advantages, I think, to be had here, if we were to seriously take a look at union with the United States. I'm not a big fan of Canada as the 51st state because I really couldn't care less what happens on the East Coast at this stage. The East Coast right now has got to kind of, I think, acknowledge the harm that it is doing to itself. And I don't think that, just like Alberta, I think sometimes you have to just kind of try and save yourself before you can save anybody else. So, we've got to kind of deploy the life raft, get people on board, I think, here, and hopefully that will spread to the rest of Canada. But, that's for them to decide, unfortunately. So God bless you all. Just some food for thought, things to think about. This really, truly is a bigger issue about security. It's not just a bully tactic. It's not just a joke. And is the threat real? Of course it is. Trump is not messing around this time around. He's pissed off some really powerful people in some really, really powerful countries. And, they're not going to just let what they've accomplished over the last decades, go. And unfortunately, Canada's going in the wrong direction. If we see Mark Carney as our next prime minister, God help us all, because I think we now have sided with the globalists, we've sided with the elitists, and he's going to rally people around this big psyop that we need to protect our sovereignty. The exact opposite is true. They have been just giving up our sovereignty, giving up our wealth, giving up our resources, handing them over to countries that are not democracies, and you can see that in the spending. And USAID pointed that out. You see that now in global affairs, the spending that's been exposed there. We're giving money to Pakistan, we're giving money to Afghanistan, we're giving money to these countries that are not democracies and are not necessarily friends to the free world. So I'll just leave it at that. God bless you all. Cheers.